All right, we ready to go? All right, we have a great audience. How fun. So welcome to the finals of the 2025 Regents Cup competition. The prompt the students will discuss today in our Regents Cup storytelling finals is experiencing the social contract. And we've had extraordinary stories all throughout the day, right? And we have the three top folks with us today. Each speaker is going to have 10 to 11 minutes, and the order of the speakers today will be Haider Aladazi from Northern Arizona University. Congratulations. Has a fan club. Unanya Singigwi. Singui, okay, and I even had you before. Singui from the University of Arizona. Congratulations. And Yvonne Davies from the University of Arizona. Congratulations. Now I'd like to introduce our judges. We have the illustrious Henry Olson, Senior Fellow, Ethics and Public Policy Center. Christian Slater, Communications Director, the Office of Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs. Monica Villalobos, President and CEO of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Rose Lateras, Manager, Center to Protect Free Speech at the American Legislative Exchange Council. And the Honorable Mayor Becky Daggert, City of Flagstaff. Thank you all. So thank you all for joining us today. At the end of each speaker's presentation, the judges, you're going to have 8 minutes in order to complete your scorecard. You will do it after each individual speaks. And then you'll also have a chance at the end to kind of confirm your point total before you submit. So I will give the 8 minutes, but I'll also look around, at least in previous, it's gone a little bit faster than that. So there's no reason to for us to continue to if we're finished. So with that, please note that I'll show a paper sign. I will be sitting right there when you have a warning sign at 9 minutes, but know that you have 1 minute to wrap up, and then you'll have a verbal stop at 11 minutes total. So with that, I'd like to introduce Haider, if you want to come up to start us off.
Is it mic check, mic check? Is it good? Yeah. Okay. What would you do if your entire world collapsed around you? Not just for a moment, but for years. November 15th, 2003, that is the day that my beautiful mother brought me into this world. While many children are born into safety and comfort, millions of Iraqi children like me were born into a war. The Iraqi war of 2003 was so catastrophic that it took the lives of over 1 million innocent Iraqis and defined my life in many ways that I'm still coming to terms with. Despite the horrors of the war, it is something that I attribute to have developed resilience and perseverance to keep moving forward in life. Just a month into the war, my uncle Muhammad was one of his first casualties. As a high school teacher in the classroom, he exercised his right to free speech to convey the truth. However, this openness cost him his own life. The very values that you and I embody through participating in this event, which we take for granted, was what led to my uncle being targeted by the remnants of Saddam Hussein's regime. My uncle was taken from us and brutally murdered. His body was never returned, only his head in a cardboard box on the side of a street. How does a family survive that kind of a loss? How does a child grow up with this kind of trauma? My grandmother couldn't bear it. She died a few months later, consumed by grief for the loss of her son. But somehow, even in the face of loss, life kept moving forward. I was the first grandchild, the light in my family's dark world. Despite all the chaos outside, I gave them reasons to smile. It didn't matter whether my father or uncle stayed awake through the night, protecting us from intruders with their makeshift alarms made of aluminum trays leaning against the front door, or whether the sounds of bombs and gunfire filled the air. My family still found solace in simple moments like watching me play, laugh, and grow. Summers in Iraq were brutal, 125 degrees Fahrenheit, no air conditioning, and only an hour or two of power each day, followed by a 12-hour outage. My family's only escape from the unbearable summer heat was our open roof, which we hoped would provide a strong breeze and view of the moon and stars, a welcome break from the seemingly endless sadness and despair during wartime. But often, peace was fragile, and our temporary reverie would be interrupted by bullets whizzing overhead and the sound of jet engines unloading bombs, reducing buildings down to rubble. It was absolute terror. As the war continued to rage on, there were more brief moments of peace, moments that were violently shattered. Like my very first memory at 2 years old. On a one summer evening in 2005, while my family gathered for tea in the garden, I was playing soccer with my dear friend and cousin Ali. In that moment, nothing felt more relaxing than the cool summer grass beneath our little feet. Suddenly, this moment of peace and tranquility was interrupted when two men burst into our home, panicked, running from the United States Army after killing a general. I remember these moments so vividly. In a desperate effort to escape, the terrorists ran to the back of the house and tried to jump over the wall, but the barbed wire we had placed ruined their plan. With nowhere to go, they turned to my family, hoping to blend in plain sight. Without a word, my grandfather quickly hid the hunting rifles that we kept for protection beneath a pile of flower leaves. Moments later, the army, accompanied by an air unit, stormed in. Suddenly, red dots, the laser sights of guns, appear in our chests. Ali and I clung to my father's leg, terrified. It was about an hour, but it felt like a lifetime. My grandfather was dragged in for questioning, but later released because he was wearing flip-flops. The terrorists were wearing sneakers. That small detail, flip-flop versus sneakers, saved the life of my grandfather and probably my entire family. Can you imagine the shoes you're wearing be the tiny detail that decides between life and death? After this incident, terrorists placed a bounty on our family. So we fled 4 hours south to Najaf, leaving everything and everyone we knew behind, including my grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, and Ali. My mother, at the time we fled, was only a few weeks away from bringing a new life to this world, a welcome distraction for herself, my father, and I. On August 16th, 2006, my brother Hassan was born, his name meaning the benefactor, the generous, the pure. Though he was only an infant, Hassan's presence brought peace and tranquility to our hearts that no word could describe. But just 2 months later, he left us. His life was consumed by an infection caused by contaminated medical equipment, a direct consequence of the terrorists besieging the city. They murdered my brother. My parents were devastated. I lost my beloved Hassan before I even had a chance to know him. 2 months was all I had. A time not long enough for love, but long enough to feel the sorrow that he left behind. Yet again, in the face of so much loss my family endured, my father and uncle risked their lives daily to find food. We lived under siege for nearly 8 years, but we survived. In 2014, after a decade of war and fear, we left Iraq for the United States, hoping for a fresh start. We settled in South Dakota for 2 years before moving to Arizona, where I faced a new kind of battle. Learning a new language, adapting to a new culture, and confronting discrimination. I was called a terrorist. Having had to flee my home because of an encounter with real terrorists, I understood the horrors of terrorism in a way that the students directing those casual slurs towards me could never understand. So I never let hatred define me. In just 2 years, realizing language is a barrier, I learned English and I even taught my parents the language. Believe me, the time I migrated to the United States, I could not read, write, or speak English. As I grew a little older, running became my outlet, my refuge and escape. I joined my high school's cross-country and track and field teams, where I eventually earned a scholarship to compete at the college level. And ultimately, my greatest accomplishment, to run the men's national cross-country championship in Richmond, Virginia, the biggest race of my life. Running has taught me that barriers only exist if we choose to create them. So I look back now and see how far I've come. The war that took my uncle Muhammad and my beloved brother Hassan took my homeland and my childhood. But it gave me a purpose to stand for those who cannot speak for themselves. That is why I've decided to pursue a career in international law, to fight for human rights and justice for those whose voices have been silenced. Living in the United States has shown me the importance of a social contract where a government is accountable to its people and fundamental rights are protected. But this contract must extend beyond national borders. Fundamental human rights must not exist only here. They must be a global endeavor. Whether through international laws, human connections, or shared values, we all have a role in ensuring that rights and dignity are respected for every person on earth. So I stand before you all today to tell you that my story is not just mine. It's the story of millions of children who suffered through war. It's the story of resilience and the pursuit of justice. It's a universal story as old as human civilization that itself must be told. That those who've been affected by war and those whose governments broke their social contracts, those like me, we're not just numbers and we're not burdens. We are people with voices that matter. We are people who aspire to be lawyers, architects, doctors, engineers, scientists, and so much more. We dream of healing, teaching, building, and discovering. We, you, and I, are people who deserve to strive, to hope, and to belong. Why? We're all human beings. We all breathe the same air and we all bleed the same blood, and we all deserve the right to live life with dignity and respect. In Arabic, hayhat min al-dhilla translates to never to humiliation, and means we rise above the injustice that has been done. And so I'll spend my life being the echo of the oppressed. As we also say in Arabic, Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be upon to you. Thank you.
All right, my friends, we're going to start a little bit early because all of our judges are rock stars and they've already finished up the scores. So now, yay, I know. So now we're going to welcome Ananya, please. And you will have you'll have 10 minutes, 1 minute with their 11 ultimately. Okay, thanks, love.
We all had that one kid in our class who would answer even before the teacher finishes the question. The one who carries 5 pens, 2 backups, and asks for extra homework. The one who says, "I'm surprised the test was so easy," and actually means it when you're just trying for a pass. That annoying kid is me. And no shame here. Full-time nerd, permanent front row seat. I can be sad, depressed, overwhelmed, but I cannot have a bad grade. Since school, I've been placed at top of my classes. I've tried to win every possible award: dance, debate, even art competitions. I was the elected president of my high school and have made it to the dean's list every semester at the university. When people look at my journey, they often assume that I'm just an overachiever. But I promise you that this is not overachieving. This is dreaming with my whole soul. I dream big because I carry my mother's legacy. My mother was once a brilliant student, curious, thoughtful, always hungry to learn more. She wanted to become a professor, to spend her life in books and ideas. She grew up in a small town in India where there were no colleges nearby. But even if there were, it wouldn't have mattered. The social contract didn't expect women to become professors, doctors, or even make their own decisions. It expected them to follow one path, the only path: to become housewives, to stay at home and take care of large joint families where the power resided with the men. especially the older ones, while the rest followed in silence. So when my mother expressed that she wanted to continue her education, she wasn't just asking to go to college. She was asking for something radical. She was asking her family to break the social contract. My mother had just graduated from high school, and one morning, while serving tea to her uncles, she gathered courage to speak one sentence. I, I want to go to college. The air changed right away. Her father's eyes narrowed in rage and warning. Her uncle said, "What is this nonsense? Do you want to bring shame to family's name?" She tried to speak. "Be quiet or leave the house." She gave up. But that was not enough. Her will made the men angry. So they arranged her marriage to my father, a tighter, a louder contract to restrain her. That's what happens when you defy. And truth be told, she wasn't alone. In every city, in every village, in every home in India, there are girls with their dreams quietly tucked away in between chores and compromises. It wasn't just my mother's family, it was the system. Silent rules passed down through traditions where the system said and the contract stated, a woman's place is not hers to be chosen. When I was born, everyone expected a son. My oldest sister was already there. And having two daughters in India is not a cause of celebration. Girls are seen as burden, raised only to be given away. People didn't say congratulations. They said, maybe next time. Some just didn't say anything at all. But my parents chose differently. My mother, with her broken dreams, and my father, inspired by her will, chose to invest in our education. They decided to send my sister and I to a popular boarding school in India, but the same social contracts. They were met with a lot of anger, a lot of criticism, and then it was decided that our mother was to move with us to a bigger city, to raise us, to watch over us, while my father stayed behind to support the family business and to support us financially. We moved to a bigger city with my mom where she didn't know anyone, just two daughters, one small apartment, and big dreams. And on nights when lights went off, she sat there alone carrying the weight of it all so we could have our freedom. Knowing this inspired me to carry her legacy. Years later, I found myself in a room with my uncle sitting on a sofa on one side, my father on the other, and I standing in between them, looking at my father who was staring at the floor. My mother was standing outside the room, secretly listening to the conversation as my uncle said, "How dare you apply to the universities abroad? What do you think of yourself? You think you can do this alone?" I said, "If other boys in the family can, I can too." "Look at your aunts. They're happy. They're settled. You think you're special? You are just spoiled. Enough." As tears rolled down my cheeks, I heard my mother sobbing outside. I stood there in silence, looking at my father, who was still staring at the floor. And when he finally looked up, he said, "Ananya, leave." I did. I joined my mother in her corner, and from there we watched as my father stood up, looked at my uncles, and said, "I have never disobeyed this family before, but I have seen her work hard. I've seen her go to bed at 12 and wake up at 6. I've seen her write her SATs and her college exams. college applications, Indian exams, and prepare for student body responsibilities. And it might be the worst mistake of my life, but she is going to go. And in that moment, my mother rushed and stood beside my father, quietly supporting him. I don't know what was in that room that day. Was it my father's male authority rising, or my mother's powerful will whispering, "Not again"? On my last day in India, before moving here, all my uncles came and told me they were proud of me. All my cousins cheered me on, and my parents refused to engage in anything other than packing my bags. There are times when I find myself alone here, when I feel like everything is going wrong. And in those moments, I think about my parents, their love, their courage that broke the social contract that once contained my mother. It's not the food and clothes they packed in my bag. It's their support that keeps me strong, that keeps me going. And sure, you all can call me a nerd, because it's a privilege for somebody like me to be called a nerd. And 1 month from now, as I walk across the stage, it just wouldn't be for my graduation. It would be for my father's support, for my mother's legacy, for every girl who was once silenced, and for every girl who is still waiting to be seen. My parents carried the weight of unbalanced social contract that gave freedom to some and silence to others. And they still handed me something so whole. They didn't just give me life. They gave me possibilities, and that is what the social contract is to me. It's not just about what you inherit, it's about what you choose to pass on. So this story, let it be your reminder that we all hold power to pass on something. Leave behind more freedom than you were ever given. Give more support than you ever had, and offer more kindness than this world ever offered you. Because whatever you choose to pass on will become the world somebody else will begin in.
All right. And last but definitely not least, Yvonne Davies from the University of Arizona.
It was hot, and I was sweating so much I could physically feel my body overheat. I was so enraged with anger. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fight. I wanted revenge. As I sat there overheating in the middle of a cold concrete floor, surrounded by four walls, I could not comprehend how I got there. I was innocent, and yet I sat in a jail cell like a caged animal. How could I be arrested, charged, locked up like a criminal if I committed no crime? Now I know what you're probably thinking. Innocent people don't go to jail. And I used to think the same way too. But there I was, trapped in a cell, in solitude, with my own thoughts. We as a society have this expectation that good things come to those who work hard, do the right thing, respect one another, and abide by the rules. At least that was the social contract I made with the government. If I do my part, if we all do our part, then all is well. Man, I was living the American dream. I was a sergeant with the sheriff department. I was a training officer who people looked up to. I was full of life and saving up money to buy my first home. My future was bright. Well, until it wasn't. The second that changed my life forever was the moment I heard that heavy steel door slam shut and the lock click. I replayed it again in my mind. It was just an ordinary night. My friend and coworker invited me out for a drink. We ended up going to the Buffet Bar. Now, this bar was famous for being Tucson, Arizona's oldest bar since 1934. And if I recall it correctly, it kind of smelled like 1934 too. Woo! There were 2 doors on each side of the bar that you could enter and exit from. And there was not a window in the whole place, not one. We went there, and when we arrived, we saw 10 other coworkers celebrating another officer's birthday. So we decided to join them and have a great time. Towards the end of the night, the bartender yelled, "Last call." At this time, Matt went outside for a quick smoke with a couple of the other officers, and I went to the bathroom. But when I came out, it was like everyone had vanished, like they left in a hurry, except for 3 people sitting at the bar. I said, "Where did everybody go?" And one man at the bar said, "They're all outside." He then proceeded to say, "Someone is looking for you. They keep asking, 'Where's the black girl? Where's the black girl?'" And just before I was going to ask him who, Matt rushed into the door. He saw me and he said, "D, let's go." And he ran out the other door. I tried to figure out, why was Matt rushing me to leave so rudely? When I got outside, it was dark, but I could vaguely make out a small crowd of people across the street. I thought Matt was in that crowd until he called my name to the left. And I asked, "Are any of our guys over there?" He said, "D, everyone left. Let's go." So I got in the car, we left, I got a bite to eat, and I went home. The next day, I got a phone call from a police detective. He wanted to ask me a couple questions about the night before, so I went down to the station and answered him. During questioning, the police detective pulled out a laptop and he showed me a fight that occurred outside the bar and was captured on camera. That's when I knew. When I was in the bathroom at the bar, 6 off-duty officers, my coworkers, Matt included, got into a fight with 4 civilians that night. I couldn't believe it. But the detective said I was able to go home because everything checked out. So I did. 2 weeks later, I was charged and arrested for a Class 3 felony hindering prosecution. Let me explain. When I left the bar that night to get a bite to eat with Matt, the law saw it as me preventing or hindering Matt's arrest. Matt never told me that he was involved in a fight. He knew that as a sergeant, if he shared that information, I had an obligation to report him. That's why I was so angry in that cell. For a crime I did not commit, a crime I did not witness, and a crime I never even knew occurred. Back in the cell, on that cold concrete floor, I started to feel anxiety build up, like I wasn't in control anymore. I started to feel my mind slipping away from me. "Come on, Yvonne, you're stronger than this. You're stronger than them. Just focus." I closed my eyes and I took a deep breath in and out. They have no power over you. They have no power over you, is what I kept repeating as my mantra. And pretty soon, I had this clarity to accept this thing that I cannot change. I sat in jail for 1 day, and I was released at midnight. Now, even though I was released, my reputation was ruined. I was fired from the sheriff department. I was not allowed to leave the state of Arizona. My mugshot was on KGA 9 News, the front page of the Arizona Daily Star, plastered across Google and YouTube. Being a defendant in the criminal justice system is hard, to say the least. I quickly realized that the same social contract that I had with the government was unfair and unjust. Now, there were a lot of disparities in the way I was treated and the way my 6 co-defendants were treated. I mean, charges, for example. They were charged of felony 6 assault. I was charged of felony 3 hindering prosecution, way worse than the felony 6. And plea offers, we all got them. They got a plea offer, no prison time, 6 months probation, and once they did that, their felony charge got reduced to a misdemeanor. I wasn't so lucky with my plea offer. I got 2.5 years prison time. I mean, 6 months and they were in and out of the court system. I was not so lucky because I didn't take my plea offer. I mean, would you? The judge ordered me to be in Superior Court once a month until a trial date was set. For 2 years, I sat in the criminal justice system and a trial date was finally set. 2 weeks before trial, I got notification that my felony charge had been dismissed. I mean, they made an announcement and simply said, the Pima County Attorney's Office has no evidence against Yvonne Roxanne Davis for this charge. Wait a second, that was it? I mean, I had 2 years of my life taken away for them not having any evidence. They accused me, arrested me, and locked me up. 2 years of my life disrupted. Why was this? Was the disparity in treatment because of my race? Was it because of my gender? I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that my 6 co-defendants, my 6 coworkers, none of them look like me. They assaulted innocent people and got away with a slap on their wrist. When people ask me about this experience, I think about how my life has changed. I used to think I knew how society worked, how we give up our freedoms for protection from our government. I used to think, just like you, we were innocent until proven guilty. I used to think Lady Justice was blind. Navigating the criminal justice system and truly experiencing a broken social contract between me and the government left me wondering, is there truth to the concept of life, liberty, and justice for all? I used to be ashamed to tell the story, but not anymore. I realized this story made me who I am today. This story is for all of you so that you can realize and think about the delicate contract that binds us together in this shared society. And what better place than to share this story, my injustice I experienced, than right here in this forum, in dialogue with all of you under the very same contract.